give an origination story on this one because it's quite interesting. So Matt Geiger, who just looks for value all day long, that's his job, and that's how a lot of us actually create wealth here. And he brought this to us when it was known as a company called Source Exploration. And Source was a company, when we got to it, that had just rolled its structure back 10 for 1. And Denis Laviolette, who is outside finishing his cigarette, will come in. We can all cheer for his due diligence on this. But he looked at all the core in the data room here, and we had about what we thought was about 1 million ounces of gold equivalent. And when we got to it, it had just consolidated its stock, like I said, 10 for 1. And it was trading at a 2 million market cap, with 1 million ounces of gold equivalent sitting there in the ground already, just being prepared to be pushed out in a technical document. So us and a lot of our network jumped in on this one really cheap, and we've turned the company around, and big investor, former Goldman Sachs fund manager sits here, Ali Zamani, jumped on as chairman, wrote a big check into the thing, Brian Robertson. They can introduce themselves a little more when they get up here, but this is something that was kind of a blood, sweat, and tears effort for a lot of us in the room, and it's finally catching some wind, and we're really excited about it. So, Mexican Gold Corp, everybody.
Zamani, I'm the chairman. I'll give a quick intro, and I'll leave it to Brian to kind of tell you all the good stuff. But my background, I'm not a geologist, I'm not an engineer, I'm a financial guy. I worked in investment banking. I worked in Goldman's prop group for 10 years, investing in metals and mining, oil and gas, utilities. We probably at different points had $100 million in gold investments. We wound down our gold book as well as the prop group in 2012 because of the Volcker rule. Weren't allowed to do that anymore, but I miss those days. So since then, I've run my own hedge fund. I realized machines are better at that than me, so I kind of stopped doing that. I'm doing bunch of cash flow businesses. I'm rolling up air conditioning and plumbing businesses and doing some homeowner association loans. So totally different than gold. But I've always liked gold. I think you guys have heard a lot about why gold is interesting. My 2 cents on it is, the U.S. government, I'll just use that as a microcosm because it's still the reserve currency, but they're running about a $500 billion deficit right now. In 10 years, it'll be a $1 trillion deficit. We're in the middle of a freebie economy. You used to buy an Encyclopedia Britannica, now you go to Wikipedia. The jobs and the tax revenue that are lost through this process and what Amazon's doing is going to be enormous, not to mention the demographics. Our costs are going to go up 5, 10, 15% a year as everyone gets older and has less kids, and I don't think people are going to pay tax with Bitcoin. So, I don't think the revenue side is going to keep up. The Fed, for the last basically 8 years, has purchased through money printing the exact amount of the deficit by coincidence. So there was no kind of net funding of the government required. The Fed stopped doing that last year. So the private sector is now financing $500 billion a year. Now, actually that money is kind of spilling over from Japan and Europe, but at the end of the day, if we're running $1 trillion in 10 years and central banks stop printing, that's got to come out of the stock market, real estate market, other markets. That'll cause a crash. That'll get the Fed back in. Or maybe they never stop. Maybe they stay in forever. Either way, you either get a crash and they're back in, debasement, or they keep doing it, which is debasement. So there's no way to get around kind of the bill that's going to come. So I wanted to get back into gold. I wanted to get the most leverage I could, the cheapest ounces I could get. So I was, I think the simple metric is kind of ounces per market cap. You don't want to own something that's never going to be a mine because no one's ever going to pay you for it on the back end. So I was looking for something that's dirt cheap on dollars per ounce. We'll eventually have enough ounces to be a real asset that someone would want to buy, and you could amortize a mill in an operation. It has the grade that it can be mined profitably, that someone would want to be interested in. And it's in a place that you can mine it where they're not going to take it away. And actually, if you kind of have devaluations, you're not going to be subject to huge inflation on the cost side. So Mexican Gold kind of checks all those boxes. When I got involved, they, kind of looking at the data, we thought they had 1 million ounces. We came out with our first resource estimate. It was 1 million ounces. The grade was 2 grams. It's 2 grams because the hole spacing's wide and it's early, but it's really probably 3-4 grams. That resource is on 20,000 meters. We've actually drilled, by the end of next month, we'll have drilled 28,000 meters. That million resource is on 2 of 8 targets. I think we have 12 targets now. And I would say that, kind of if you draw a similarity with Torex, which I think Brian's going to do a better job of, it's the same type of deposit. It's a skarn deposit. The difference is ours is not in the mountains with drug lords and bad security. Ours is on the coastal region that's safe. It's in a town called Las Minas. I don't think you need to speak Spanish to know, that's a mining town. It's always been a mining town. After the Mexican Revolution, it kind of, the claims fell apart, and, it's kind of just gotten back together now. But we have a contiguous deposit. It's the river valley system that's kind of eroded it away, that it looks like it's a bunch of little deposits. Our geologists figured this out. I think you're going to see in the drill results, why are we so good? It's not that we're so good, it's just one deposit. So I think this is going to have scale. I think above the sill, we're going to have 3 or 5 million ounces. I think if you look at Torex, they're finding the most interesting stuff below the sill. We're trading at $7 an ounce. We're drilling at $150, $60 all in per meter. We're finding gold at $3 an ounce. So it's still accretive, but I don't know if you guys remember 10, 15 years ago, but companies used to trade at $100 an ounce. I don't know, we're trading at 7, we're finding it at 3, we're going to find a lot. So it's exciting to me, and I think it'll be pulled out of the ground profitably, and I think someone will want it. So with that, I'll let Brian kind of give you the more technical presentation.
Thank you very much, Ali. Some of the information I'll be presenting today will be forward-looking, so I refer you to our disclosure statement. Just a quick overview of Mexican Gold. We control the Las Minas Project in Veracruz State, Mexico. This is a historic mining district, and as Ali mentioned, we just published initial 43-101 report in August that basically came in at 1 million gold equivalent ounces. We have a very tight share structure, new institutional shareholder in Palisade Global, and our 2017 Phase 2 exploration program is underway. And basically that'll look at 3 areas. Initial expansion drilling of that 43-101 resource at the Eldorado One Zone. We'll also be doing exploration drilling at Cinco Sonorous and Las Minas, and carrying out field exploration at a couple of high priority targets, Santa Cruz and Pueblo Norte. As you can probably tell by the color of my hair, we have a very experienced management and board, and experience in a number of key areas: financial, exploration, mine construction and operations, as well as on corporate administration. Ali's given you some of his background. My background, I've been involved in mine construction and operations, 21-year career with Placer Dome. Last 15 years I've been on the exploration side. John Anderson, over 20 years experience in capital markets. Gordon Glenn, very experienced geologist, a lot of years in the banking and securities industry, CEO of Minova. Sean Drake's been a corporate secretary for a number of junior and intermediate gold producers. Gavin Nelson, over 10 years of experience in financial reporting. Whoops. Just a quick overview of our capital structure. I think the important thing here is small number of shares out, 34 million issued. Key shareholders, Palisade Global, 19.8%, management at 7.48%. Yes, we do have some skin in this game. And if you combine those two, that's 27% of the 34 million that's issued. So it's very tightly held. So Las Minas has a lot of similarities to the Guerrero Gold Belt, in particular the Los Filos mine, of course now is Lee Gold, formerly Gold Corp, as well as Torex's Media Luna. And I say this, that it has a lot of similarities because number one, the geology is very similar. There's skarn deposit. Mineralogically, they're very similar. If you look at the style of mineralization, the type of minerals are basically the same. And actually, if I took core from Las Minas and put it side by side with core from Media Luna, you couldn't tell them apart. They're that close. This is a district scale geological setting. Area-wise, there's 12 kilometers by 10 kilometers, so there are 120 square kilometers here. And as you can see in this picture, there are a number of small-scale mines here, and one of them to note is Juan Brand. That was a former small-scale mine. That's where we've drilled off 1 million gold equivalent ounces. So this area is district scale. We basically have a Cretaceous platform consisting of limestones and marbles, and underneath that is an underlying intrusive, which is diorite. And we believe that that contact, that intrusive, is actually a sill structure, very similar to what you see at Media Luna. We have mineralized zones in a number of these skarn areas. We carried out a mag survey very early after we acquired the property, and it did two things for us. Number one, it identified a number of these old mines. Of course, there's lots of magnetite around. But more importantly, it identified a number of extension areas. You can see some of them here, the Eldorado extension area, Santa Cruz extension area, Cinco Sonorous extension area, and it also identified Peck, where we subsequently drilled and we had an excellent intersection at Peck. This is a world-class skarn subsystem. It's district scale. It's over 120 square kilometers. We have mineralized skarn in 7 of these historic mining areas. And the Mexican government actually did a survey in this area, produced a report. They estimated the skarn at about 70 million tons. So there are a number of historic high-grade mines at Pueblo Nuevo, at Cinco Sonorous. There's a parallel zone at Cinco Sonorous and Las Minas. The Peck I mentioned showed up as a mag anomaly. We drilled it. There's a new discovery there. We've just completed another very detailed mag survey, and that's identified a number of anomalies at all of these zones. And if you go back in history, there were actually fairly small-scale mines that were operating in Las Minas. Our 43-101 resource we published in August. It's basically 1 million gold equivalent ounces, 700,000 in the inferred, 300,000 in the measured and indicated. Overall grade is 2 grams per ton, but that's actually split out into 2 sections, open pit and underground. We basically spent $5.5 million to discover that 1 million gold equivalent ounces. So our discovery cost is around $5.50. A lot of numbers here, some very basics. We're at 15.5 million tons in those 2 zones, Eldorado One Brand. About 14 million of that is open pit at a grade of 2 grams. 2 grams in an open pit in Mexico will make it one of the highest grades open pits in Mexico. We're at about 1.5 million tons for the underground at a 3+ gram grade. So, and that is in 2 of 8 zones that we know of at Las Minas. I mentioned 8 zones. 7 of those zones actually occur at Las Minas itself. Our other concessions are about 2 kilometers to the north of this. So basically you have the Eldorado One Brand zone and Santa Cruz concession. Cinco Sonorous is a parallel zone. That's where the mining initially started. Las Minas, there's an old underground mine there. Los Boquillas, lots of underground workings there. Guerrero, a former underground mine, had been underground there. It was mined for 200 meters vertically, very narrow. 400 meters remain unmined at Guerrero. We've drilled it, we've hit intercepts below the area that they've mined. Just a quick block model of Eldorado One brand zone. Some things that stand out here. Number one, it outcrops on surface. It's very close to surface. It's wide, 420 meters in width, 600 meters down dip, still open in width and down dip, and thicknesses varied from 6 to 38 meters. Now, in a recent hole we just completed, we put out a press release on that. We extended this zone another 65 meters to the west, and when we drilled that last hole, hole number 40, we had 77.8 meters of mineralization. So here you have 38, so we've almost doubled that thickness in that particular area. Just some quick numbers on the grades. This is the Eldorado One brand zone. You can see some nice intervals here. 4.43 over 24, 4.18 over 26. These are very mineable underground grades. I've operated underground mines, I've operated open pit mines, and these grades are excellent grades for an underground mine in Mexico. I was mining 3 grams underground in Newfoundland a few years ago. This is a high-grade Santa Cruz zone. This is a very exciting zone. It's consisting of a series of lenses over 150 meters wide. The geology is different in the sense that you have a number of dikes coming into this area. You have a stockwork that's beside it. You have several mineralizing events going on here. That's why we're seeing some of these high grades. These are some great numbers that came out of Santa Cruz, 10.06 grams over 16 meters, 2.7 over 97 meters. Take a look at those copper numbers, 2.96, 7.44, 3.46. Some very impressive intervals that came out of Santa Cruz. This is not drilled off. We know that it continues above, I got 5 minutes. We know it continues above this area, so pretty exciting results. Just ease of mining access. This outcrops on surface at Eldorado One brand. Very simple access for the Santa Cruz section. Cinco Sonorous, we've just started drilling at Cinco Sonorous. This is, we believe, a parallel zone to Eldorado One brand. This is where the mining initially started. We believe that Cinco Sonorous could be even larger than what we've seen over at Eldorado One brand. Palisade Peck, I've mentioned it. Initially, geophysical target, we drilled there, 5.74 meters over 5.74 grams per ton over 17 meters. This is sitting beside Santa Cruz. It's actually part of Santa Cruz, and it sits 150 meters vertically above Eldorado One brand. The hole that we drilled ended in mineralization. We couldn't drill deeper because the size of the drill we were using, we could only drill up to 200 meters. Pueblo Nuevo, an exciting area of historical mining. Some interesting things here. First of all, the grade. Secondly, all these vein systems are parallel. And what we have here is a 400 meter wide shear zone with a series of parallel vein systems. Temiagua, we went there, we sampled, we did some work there. We found another vein system parallel to it, extensive mining, nobody knew about it. So we've just done some field work here. We will be going back in there as part of this exploration program, and we still have to drill. So what have we achieved? Well, basically, we've drilled 17,000 meters. We produced over 1 million gold equivalent ounces. Metallurgical work is excellent. There was a former historic float mill here at this site. This is flotation, 89 in the gold, 95 in the copper, 84 in the silver. You don't have to use cyanide. We have some high-grade sample results, a new vein discovery at Pueblo Nuevo. We have some positive drilling results from before at Las Esmanilas, Los Boquillas, and Guerrero, and we have a new discovery at Nopal and Peck. So 2017, our plan, this is already well underway. Drilling at Eldorado One brand. We put out 2 press releases on that, some very significant results there. We've just started drilling Cinco Sonorous, and we will also be drilling at Las Minas. We finished the ground mag surveys and the time domain EM surveys. Some excellent anomalies in all 3 of those zones, as well as conductors from the time domain EM. We put out a press release on that. We will be posting those, the report on our website. We've got high-grade results over at Pueblo Nuevo. Santa Cruz, as I mentioned, is not drilled off. Above the area we drilled, we have found some nice, very nice looking mineralization. We have an anomaly extension in that area. We believe that Santa Cruz continues upwards. And our geologists are all excited about Guerrero because of the number of old workings there and the amount of mining that was carried out at Guerrero. So recent results out, hole 40 was a boomer. Strong chalcopyrite, bornite, and magnetite. And actually our geologist tells me that it's one of the best that's ever been drilled at Las Minas. And I refer you back to the results that came out of Santa Cruz. And this mineralization looks very, very similar to what we saw at Santa Cruz. So nice intervals, nice grades. Drilling at Eldorado has extended that zone another 65 meters to the west. Time domain EM surveys proven to work out very well for us. It's picked off these conductors, and we correlated the conductors with the previous drilling that we carried out for defining that 43101 resource. And it's a bit uncanny how the outlines actually match. So, and as I mentioned, we do have several anomalies at Eldorado, Cinco Sonorous, and Las Minas. And that basically is what makes a mine. That's hole 40. Thank you.
Think you understand the junior mining sector and you think that the participants in the mining sector, junior mining sector, are good people and kind people, hit the bid.
How violent that term could be, it actually could be quite violent. It could be a rip your face off uranium rally.
And the world is always going to need raw materials. It's going to need copper and gold and nickel and so forth.
Totally destabilized. Hey, Troll, did you hear what's going on in Yemen?